Hey everyone, Al here, and this is episode 1 of How to PoE, Getting Ready to Play. Prophecy brought a lot of new players to Path of Exile, so I've decided to make a short series of basic guides about the game to help them out with understanding this extremely vast and complex, but incredibly fun game. I've been playing for a few years. I just started streaming 2 weeks ago. I figured I'd help some people out. So let's get right to it. First stuff first, gems. You have to understand that in this game, all your skills come from the gems you have equipped. The entire point of PoE is centered around these gems. Active skills, such as Blade Vortex that you see here, and supports. Here, for example, you have Controlled Destruction, Faster Casting, Spell Echo, and Increased Area of Effect. It's quite simple, so I'll be quick about it. Each active skill has categories, so you can see there, Spell, AoE, and Duration. And they can be supported by any support gem that shares one of these categories. So for example, Controlled Destruction says Spell Support, so it supports anything that is a spell. Same thing for this. Same thing for this. This supports anything that has Area of Effect. Since our skill is also Area of Effect, then it's supported. Some are better than others, obviously, but each fit a certain playstyle or your goal. For example, increased AoE doesn't help my damage at all, but it makes my skill much larger. As you can see, it's very large now. If I were to remove it, and I would wait a bit for these to go away, now the area is much smaller. But as soon as I put it back, the area increases in size by, well, it says right there, 38%. This is obviously helping my style of when I want to clear fast, but when I want to fight tough bosses, I'll swap it with something like Consecrated Effect, which makes my area of effect smaller, 25% smaller, but I have 58% more area damage, and then I'll hit much stronger in a smaller AoE, and then I'll hit bosses really, really powerful. Quality on gems, like you can see here, 20% quality, these are pretty nice, they give nice little bonuses, but they're not at all needed. You can complete, like, everything in the game without issue, without quality. It's just a nice little boost. So I wouldn't worry about it early on. Vaal gems, things like these, Vaal Lightning Trap, are special modifications of regular skills, and you'll find them in Vaal side areas. I'll explain those in a later guide. But basically, they are types of skills, like here, you see Vaal Haste, that require souls. So you see I've gotten about like 20%. So the more I kill mobs, the more I gather souls. I'll go kill a few mobs just to get this going. But you'll see that as soon as, you see, as I kill mobs, this fills up. And once it's completely full, I can use it once until I refill its souls. So let's just finish filling this up quickly. Alright, you see it's full now? And so now when I use it, it'll give me 36% increased attack speed, 20% movement speed, and 35% increased cast speed. So I will use it, and then boom, I go much faster, and I attack faster. It's just generally they're very powerful skills. And now it's back full, I can use it again. That's how it works. Alright, next part is skill trees. Now, the skill tree, at first, in the game, when you open it, is like daunting. You see all of these possibilities, all of these options. It's really scary. That's normal, because you have unlimited choice, you have 3 ascendancies per class with more choice. It's really tough, especially when you don't know the game well. My honest recommendation, since this is a beginner guide, don't try and do it yourself as your first character. You'll thank me later. Just find a build online, try it out, understand how it works, how they made it, and then from there, try to make your first build. And when you do, your first build is gonna suck. Mine did. Everyone's does. Like, maybe it'll be decent, but it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be optimized, and that's normal. There's just too much in this tree to know all of it the first time you try. But don't be discouraged. Like, you just keep on going and you get better. I mean, I've been playing for 3 years, and I still learn stuff all the time, especially because the skill tree is always changing. But anyway, here's some tips when you want to try your first build, and if you want to try it first anyway. Life. You need life, or energy shield if you're going chaos inoculation, but I wouldn't recommend it as your first build. Anyway, life. If you're playing softcore, I'd recommend at least 175% of life on tree. So like you see, this is 5%, 10%, 5%. So like 175% just to be safe. In hardcore, you probably want more just to make sure you're gonna stay alive. You can do builds with less, but only on very specific, super safe skill setups, and generally, you don't want to, because that means that your margin for error is very low. If you accidentally take a hit, if you accidentally just like get caught by something that you were unaware of, you'll just instantly die, and if you're in hardcore, that means you lose your character forever. If you're in softcore, you don't, but that's still 10% XP loss, which gets, like, in higher difficulties, which is really annoying to deal with. And generally, it's just a huge loss of time, and it's not fun. So yeah, life is good. More life means you stay alive. Staying alive always means you do more damage. Obviously, damage is the second part of the tree. The only thing I'll say on that is try to keep it focused. Like, if you're playing a crit character, get these crit nodes, get a bunch of crit nodes. Like, make sure that you have different ways to sustain crit. If you're playing a non-crit character, pretty much ignore them, because a lot of these small nodes, while there are good builds that can use both, like, crit effectively without using too many crit nodes, generally you want a lot of crit nodes or none, because it's just not usually worth it to go half-half. You'll end up with things that are invested badly. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to all builds. I'm just saying, as a general rule, if you're just trying to make your first build and you don't want to screw it up, I just avoid crit because it also requires specific gear. I would go straight up just regular damage, spell damage, or physical damage, or anything, and just focus on that. If you're going melee, go grab Resolute Technique so you don't deal crits, but you don't have to deal with accuracy. Just if you're doing elemental damage, take Elemental Overlord. Just drop, crit, and have fun. And then later on, once you know the game better and you start having currency to afford gear, then you could do some really powerful crit builds. And they are very strong, but they require more investment. Now, next part, as a starting player. Loot filters. Loot filters are an amazing addition to this game, and they are a must-have for any player now. It'll show you what to pick up, it'll make the game easier to play, enjoy, it'll overall make your stream just way less full of useless clutter all time. Personally, I've been using NeverSyncs filters, so I'm going to drop these items and show you how they are. So, you can see all this stuff. These are all items I just dropped on the ground. It just makes everything really clear to see. Small stuff like Scrolls of Wisdom, they show up because they're currency, but, you know, whatever, they're just kind of there. Transmutes, same thing. Alteration, it starts getting better currency, so it starts, like, showing up bigger. Then you have the next tier, well, you have, like, silver coins, which are for the current Prophecy League. Then you have the Orbs of Fusing, Chaos Orbs, all of those that are basically the generic type of currency that most people trade with. You'll drop a lot of those. And then you have the really high, like, Exalted Orb, and I don't have a mirror, but I would show you a mirror. Then it also shows you useful things to just pick up. So, obviously maps, the higher tier of the map, the higher, like, the bigger the map. Highest tier maps show up as with a white border, so it's tier 12, and tier 15 is the highest tier, so it shows up really big with a white background. Superior gems will show up like this. 20 quality gems, so the maximum quality will show up with a white background as well. Uniques, they always show up like this unless they're very rare. If they're rare, then they show up with a white background as well. Sacrifice fragments. Cards, it's good to also pick up divination cards. And then finally, generic useful items. So like these, as you can see, they have a green, blue, and red socket that are linked. So you can pick it up, and when you sell it to a vendor, it spends for 1 chromatic orb, which is always good to have because you're always going to need the bright colors in your gear. 6 sockets, same reason. You pick them up because you sell them to a vendor, and they sell for 7 jeweler orbs. And then 5 links. 5 links are useful to link skills, so 5 links and 6 links will show up, obviously. Alright, so for this example, as you can see here, I just killed a boss of this area, and it's showing me what I can pick up. So this thing that I can pick up for Chrome, and this headpiece, it's showing up in green because it's a good rare, so like these rares are probably not going to be good, but this one is a good base, so it has a chance to actually be good, so I pick it up. Well, I would if I wasn't full. But, as you can see, there's not that much loot, but actually if I press Alt, I'll see that he dropped a bunch of random blue items. I just don't care about them, because they're not going to be good, they're not worth my time, they're not worth picking up, and so it only shows what I want to pick up. Some blue items will still show up, and that's usually because they are good items, good bases in themselves, and so they still have the potential to be good. But I wouldn't bother picking up blue items most of the time, except in very rare cases that we'll cover in other videos because it's more specific. Now, to install it, I'll show you how. I put the download link in the description. What you do is you download, and then you will get the zip file, never-sync filter. You extract it to a folder that you might have to create. You go to Documents, then My Games, and then you go to Path of Exile, right? And you just do it. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. If you don't have the Path of Exile folder, just just create it, essentially. Then you go to Documents, you go to My Games, Path of Exile, it'll show up here, never-sync filter, and then you can take whichever one you want, just copy it, like take the personal version, copy it, put it in the root filter here, right there, personal version showed up, and then you go back to the game, you go Options, UI, go all the way down, and now you have list of item filters. So now you can see I just put the personal version, click it, make sure, like I just like to extra reload, item filter loaded successfully, there you go, it's all done. Now with what I'm using, it's about the same, so it doesn't show a difference, but depending on the item filter, you basically have different colors, different styles. There's a lot of item filters out there. Feel free to Google them and you'll find a bunch. I like never-sync. He keeps his things updated really regularly, and it's always day one of the league, so I stick with him. But yeah, you can find a bunch out there, and they're pretty easy to customize as well if you know a bit of fooling around with files and stuff. So that's pretty much loot filters. Alright, next part. Easy and cheap builds to start. Now, the last thing you'll need to be ready to play is essentially to choose the build you want to do. You start putting in skill points right at the start of the game, so you need to figure it out first. Some easy and cheap builds right now are Blade Vortex. I'm currently playing a Blade Vortex Pathfinder, that's what you'll be seeing in these videos. Flame Blast Elementalist is very popular and very strong. Bladefall, Poison Trapper, Saboteur, or Vortex Elementalist. There's a lot of good builds out there. These just come to mind quickly. As easily clearing content without much investment. My build uses very good flasks, but they're not necessarily needed, and you still clear everything really good. Now, the common point you'll find with a lot of these builds is that they're spellcaster builds. There are very strong physical builds. The problem with them is they usually require more investment. You need a good weapon, a good bow, or a good mace, or the like, for it to really scale, whereas spells just kind of scale on their own with the support gems as you go on. So you don't really have to worry about getting gear and buying stuff off people and knowing what's really worth taking at the start. So that's what I recommend. Of course, I don't know all that much about those builds. I don't play a lot of melee or ranger. I love those builds, but they're just not really my style of gameplay. I play them every now and then, I try them out, fairycraft them, but my main builds are spellcaster builds. You can try anything at the start. There's a lot of great guides. You'll find pretty much anything you'd like. My only recommendation to avoid is starting Scion at the beginning of the league. Especially as a new player, don't start as a Scion. The Ascendancies are really complicated to fully use to their actual potential. You need more investment to generally get to where you want to get. They're very strong if built well, but right now it's simpler to take a strong Ascendancy from another class, such as Elementalist or Slayer, and just actually get a lot of decent scaling just at the start without having to worry too much about like what I'm actually going to get, where am I going to go, what Ascendancies do I want to combine. It's just a lot of theory crafting that isn't necessarily what you want to do when you're starting to play the game. Lastly, don't worry if you have a change of heart. There's a bunch of respec points you get just by doing side quests along the game, or even the main quest that you just get. I've already used a bunch, but I still have 5 refund points, and I still haven't done any of these side quests to get respecs. And you also have items in the game here, quite aptly named Orb of Regret. And you can use these to get an extra, see, I use 1, you have received a passive respec point, and now I have 6 refund points, and so I can respec my tree more. Ascendancy points cost 5 points each to respec, so if I want to respec them I need to use 5 points. Each other point costs 1. So you can always change to something else later, but you can't change your base character, so make sure you've decided on that clearly. Now, final point for this episode is the Community Wiki. Now, it's a great place to find information about the game, from where to buy stuff, like gems, what they do, to mobs, quests, bosses, uniques, everything you'd possibly need to know is on here. I'm gonna put the link in the description, and use it. It will soon, very soon, become your best friend in this game. Or you can do like certain groups of friends do, like ours, which is have a dedicated guy, usually one guy likes to be on the wiki at all times and answer everyone's questions. In our group, that's me. I always have it open on my second screen, and if anyone wants to know anything, where to buy a gem, what to get, I just message them, or just answer them on TeamSpeak, because I look it up all the time. Oh, and just before we finish, I would like to add and extend my thanks to Foetusofexcellence on Reddit. We just got the news today on the subreddit that he is going to be leaving. He was the guy with the original idea for the Path of Exile wiki, set it up, sold it to Curse, and now is being, contract's being subverted, so he's heading out. But thanks a lot for everything you've done. You've influenced thousands of players, including myself. I just started playing like a few months after this original wiki was created, and it's just been an amazing help this entire time. So thanks a lot, and I wish you a good run and good continuation, man. Thanks a lot. So yeah, hope this guide was useful to you. If it was, keep on going. There's plenty more information. I'm going to be doing a short series of guides about Path of Exile. I'm Alastiir. You can find my Twitch in the description. If you have a question, or leave a suggestion in the comments as to what you'd like to see in a future video. I'll see you in Wraeclast.